New overnight, as we were just talking about, Tesla CEO Elon Musk claiming victory in the shareholder vote to reauthorize his pay. He posted a chart on X showing votes in favor of Elon compensation, with that line passing through a line labeled guaranteed win. And joining us right now to talk about it, Liz Hoffman, Semafor business and finance editor and a CNBC contributor. Good morning to you. There's lots of pieces of this to pick apart. And of course, the vote is not over. Folks can still change their vote throughout the day. So we're going to be watching this probably till the end of today. But in terms of your big takeaways, if in fact this is the conclusion, the end of the soap opera, what do you think? And also, where do you think the soap opera goes? Because we all know this is still going to go to court no matter what.
Yeah. Look, on the one hand, this is a strange time to be rewarding Elon Musk. Tesla has been one of the worst performing stocks in the S&P this year. There have been headlines about his behavior largely at SpaceX, around culture, around, leaning on NVIDIA to prioritize the flow of chips. He's sort of in some vague ways kind of held these boards hostage a little bit, promising to sort of pick up his toys and move to another one of the companies that he runs if they don't kind of give him what he wants. So it's a little bit of kind of feeding the hand that bites you. But look, Elon Musk has, in a strange, really singular way, been an incredibly good steward of these companies over long periods of time. And with the large exception of Twitter, X, proximity to him has been good for shareholders. So I think there's a very fair argument to say pay him whatever he wants to keep him around.
Are you surprised that it has cut this way? And what are you anticipating in terms of the legal challenges that will be brought over this vote all over again? And so how much of this does this solve the situation? It is still possible that a judge in Delaware could look at this vote. Obviously they're doing this to try to persuade the judge otherwise, but what do you think? What do you think of that legal possibility?
Yeah, remember, the judges aren't in the business of saying you're paying your CEO too much money. They care about process. And the ruling here really was that there wasn't enough evidence that the board, which you could argue how independent it is. The big question around Elon has always been, does he control these companies or not? Certainly not by stock, but by sort of sheer force of personality. I think the process was probably, they made some changes here, and shareholders, if he's right so far, have said, again, yeah, we're sure we want to do this. And they're big boys and girls. I mean, California pension, Norway had sort of come out and said they're not going to vote in favor. I tend to think we've seen this actually a couple times where, those kinds of shareholders make a lot of noise, but actually have less influence than you think. There was a similar situation at Exxon a couple of weeks ago, and they made a lot of noise, and it didn't really make a difference. I think if you don't want to be in the Elon Musk business, you really shouldn't own Tesla stock. And I know it's in the index and people are going to have to make some choices. But it's a little bit of a self-selecting universe, and a lot of whom have made a ton of money by riding alongside okay. Elon.
So
I get it.
Let's pivot, though, because the other thing that's emerged some of which has emerged during this period, some of which may be tied to try and even influence votes, has been a number of reports now, including the big bombshell yesterday that landed on the front page of the Wall Street Journal about his relationship with women at SpaceX. What do you think of that? What do you think of that story? What do you think of the governance around both SpaceX and potentially Tesla and others?
Look, I hate the idea that there's a double standard, but Elon Musk has done any number of things over many years at many of his companies that would have gotten any other CEO fired. So do I think it will matter? No. Did we know that Elon Musk is weird, is a weird boss and inappropriate in lots of ways? Of course. The one that is actually sort of an almost easier case to make if you're trying to think about this legally is a headline from, I think, a week or two ago that he had basically leaned on NVIDIA, I think, to have SpaceX jump the line in front of Tesla. And remember, what started out as a lot of distinct companies doing, brain implants and electric cars and space travel have all kind of converged around AI, really. And lots of places he could kind of do any one of the many ideas that springs into his head. And actually, I think that's sort of a more problematic governance knot to untangle at that web of companies. The other thing, by the way, is there's a vote today that also appears to be passing to pick up Tesla and reincorporate it in Texas. Unclear what that would do to any legal challenges, but certainly came out of the same Delaware ruling that had dinged his pay the first time.
And then finally, Becky and I were talking about it earlier, this sort of ISS, Glass Lewis, these are these advisory firms which are paid a lot of money by a lot of investors to give them advice on what to do. And it appears that folks happen to pay for the advice and then not take it. And what does that mean to their businesses and the credibility and influence that these firms have?
The proxy advisors have been kind of a corporate boogeyman for a long time. Congress has tried, the SEC has tried various times to kind of rein them in. There was actually a House Judiciary report this week that suggests to me that the Republicans in Congress are about to dial in there. Look, at really high, important meetings, people are going to do their own work for the most part. The reason that proxy advisors exist, they came out of the Department of Labor in the 80s, which kind of gave 401k and pension plans, which were didn't have the time and attention to vote on every single thing at every company they owned, said, if you outsource your votes to kind of an accredited third party, we won't give you a hard time about it. And so it's really meant for the super long tail of these things. And I think we've seen actually their influence wane at some serious fights where everyone knows it's going to be
It's a CYA thing for the things you don't have time to look into. But your point on looking into it from the Republicans is very interesting. What are they suggesting? That this is more of the kind of telling people what to vote, but putting their own political spin on things like we've seen other places?
Yeah, I mean, again, the report out of Congress this week was sort of this vast left-wing conspiracy involving climate nonprofits and proxy advisors and asset managers. And I think actually what's happening at the proxy advisors is it's shifting. And you're starting to see this actually at some of the big index funds, too, where they actually say, we don't really want to be in this business. We want to give it to the end shareholder. And so they've created these kind of you can think about them almost like little political parties or voting cards where you say, here are sort of my values. I'm a conservative. I'm a liberal. I care about the economy. I care about ESG, whatever. And they will kind of create a voting profile for you. And actually, I think they've gotten ahead of some of this criticism and probably sort of a shift said, here, you take it, basically, to individual shareholders at the end of the day.